All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education on May 14th. First up is to review and approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Penny, second. Julie, all in favor? All right, thank you. Diving right in, we have two action items for discussion and approval. First is the calendar revisions, and second is the first creation of a special committee for the Board of Education. So with that, Dr. Lutzy, I'll turn it over to you to review the proposed revisions to the calendar.
Yep, glad to. Thank you, Katrina. First off, I want to again thank the board for the thoughtful discussion on Monday night that helped us in our thinking and planning moving forward to, hold on one sec. Somebody has got some background noise, so.
Here.
Thanks, Penny. Thanks. Okay, my apologies. So thank you for the thoughtful conversation that we had, and thank you for your flexibility and willingness to turn around quickly and have another meeting just a couple of days later for this purpose, because I think it's recognition of just how important all this is. After the conversation on Monday night, we really went back to our planning, to the memos, to the thinking, and wanted to make some modifications that sort of met the goals that were expressed, including to try to end on a positive note with the good, strong momentum from our kids and our families, have some ways to celebrate the work that's been done, and really have an opportunity for people to sort of come together and thank our parents, our kids, our teachers, everybody, and just be sure there's some kind of sense of normalcy as much as we can for our kids, and closure as we get into the end. So the adjustments that we've made as a result of that conversation are, I sent them to you this morning, and I'll talk through them briefly here, and then glad to talk about a little bit more. First of all, we have those 3 days that we've talked about, and while we thought it could have been a creative solution to allow people to vote, ultimately there's not time, as you said on Monday night, and we're just looking for a plan and a strategy and an approach that's going to be consistent and understandable for people and hopefully beneficial to them. So we looked at the calendar and looked to see, in the weeks that are remaining, to use those 3 days, one of them on Friday, May 22nd, which is next week, which makes next week a 4-day week, right? And then we have Memorial Day off on Monday, which would make that week a 4-day week. And then to take June 1st and then June 8th off. So what it does is for the remaining 4 weeks of the school year, make each one a 4-day week. So it breaks it up a little bit. It gives our students, our teachers, our parents an opportunity to catch their breath, some extended weekends, and as the weather hopefully gets nicer, it gives people an opportunity to get outside and get some fresh air. So the first recommendation is that, and this is all sort of bundled together in one motion, which I think is the right way to do it. But that was the thinking. So the pace is there for 4-day weeks to end the year. We keep some consistency. We don't lose kids. There's some concern about sort of losing momentum, but still give it a little bit of a break. The distance learning program, which has been an awful heavy lift for everybody involved. We looked at the calendar and said, why don't we shut that down and have our last day of distance learning on Friday, June 12th. And again, this is as a result of the conversations that we had together. That's not necessarily the last official day of the school year, but it's the day we stop distance learning and kind of end on a positive note. Monday, we have our New Canaan High School graduation. And that's a date that the board voted on back in the fall. If you'll remember, there was new legislation that let us do that. So I want to keep that date. I think that that's a good opportunity for us, no matter what that celebration is going to look like. We're going to have one, and a celebration. And while we don't anticipate it would be a traditional graduation, we're actually quite certain it won't be. I do know that there's a committee meeting right now. There were conversations yesterday. We've all been working together with the high school administration for weeks, and there's a good plan coming together. I think that will, again, honor our kids, do it safely, and provide some closure. And then Tuesday, June 16th, which is our last day sort of officially of school, would actually be a day of celebration for everybody. And what we'd like to do is have sort of I'm kind of thinking of as sort of a reverse parade where our teachers come in, they park at the schools. West, we would look at moving them to Waveney because of the way the parking lot is, and set it up so that parents and kids can drive through, wave, say hi, just give our kids one more chance to see their teachers, to wave, to just, say thank you both ways. And it's, we're so grateful for the parents and all the help they've given us, all the work of our kids, all the great efforts of our teachers. So it's just a nice celebration on that last day. But that would be our official last day of the school year. And then Wednesday and Thursday, give those days as opportunities for our teachers to close out their school year. As we said before, the managerial challenge behind distance learning has been immense, and giving them the opportunity to close out the school year, provide comments and feedback, grades, whatever they have to do depending upon their level. I think giving those 2 days for teachers to do that work would help us to end well. And then, of course, there's other pieces, and we'll talk about the other side of this in a moment. But I think that flow, I would recommend that to you today. I think it's breaking up the weeks into 4-day weeks is beneficial for everybody. I think that June 12th is our last day of distance learning. Makes an awful lot of sense, certainly based on our conversation on Monday night as well. And then, these couple of activities on the 15th and 16th. So I'll stop there and open the questions or conversations or comments.
I think it sounds great. I think the certainty in everything that you're giving to the community. I mean, I don't have a child in the school, so I don't have that. I don't have the feet on the ground. But from the perspective of looking at it, I think people in the emails we've gotten, I think people liked getting out the little bit early and then just having the celebration. So I commend the plan.
Thank you. Julie?
Yeah, I agree with Penny. I think you somehow managed to meld everything that we were talking about and requesting on Monday, in terms of the learning piece ending early, but then still making sure that there's time for celebration, and making sure that as we head towards the end of the year, there are opportunities for taking a breath. My one question is that Monday, if people say to us, so what are my children going to do that day? Like what is expected of them that day? Can you sort of shed a little light on that in terms of what you envision maybe at the different levels for that day?
Sure. And if you look at page 2 of this document, it shares a little bit of that. So on Monday, June 15th, there are some other events and things that'll be happening that are celebrations. For instance, we have our graduation for our launch program. And the teachers have asked a bit about, can they just get together with their kids one more time and just say goodbye, just talk virtually, or have just a 10 minutes, 20 minutes to just for that classroom closure. So we'd let students and teachers sort of schedule that if they'd like to do that. The graduation ceremonies, as we try to figure out what that's going to be, there may be opportunities for participation from folks at different levels. We have to see how that comes together, what the planning is. But I think that for a lot of our teachers, trying to figure out how do we close out the school year? How can I express to my kids how much they mean to me, and giving them opportunity to say goodbye to each other. So I think on the 15th, those are the types of things that would be happening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, I was going to just say this is a great compromise. I think from what where we were on Monday night, I think it's a great job. It gives some time off in the middle and gets everybody done on that Friday. So yeah, I think this was awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Jen?
Sorry, I mute myself. So I think this is a great plan. I think it's a great compromise, as Bob just said. And I know we've been again getting emails from parents that just want to forget the days off and everything. And I just remember something you said to me earlier about the other towns, not really following the guidelines from the state, and how with your comfort level, you really wanted to stick with, the state regulations. Can you just speak to that a little bit? Just so parents, if parents are not happy with the fact that we're not ending Tuesday instead of Friday, your comfort level with staying the course and sticking with the state regulation.
Well, sure. I mean, I think that the guidelines from the state are given in the right spirit to say that we our goal is to provide the best educational experience for our kids that we can. And our distance learning program, I'm quite proud of everything that people have been doing, but also recognize that, it's hard work. It's hard to do. So, as we go into the ending on the 12th with the 4-day weeks, we try to establish a routine that'll help with our kids and our families. And there are lots of families that, at the end of the school year, they're going to be home. It's very, very possible that the guidance is going to be to stay home, continue to stay home, and try not to go out as much as possible. So I think the rhythm of the day is really important for kids, and so we're providing that and continuing to provide it right through the 12th. If people can't participate in the things on the 15th and the 16th, it is what it is. We're not taking attendance. We will do the best we can. We provide those opportunities for kids and teachers and others to to celebrate together and have those closure activities. But I do think this approach meets the need to get to the end of the distance learning experience, provide opportunities for those celebrations, and honors and values the efforts and work that everyone's put in. I mean, people have done really impressive things in this whole experience, and to just rush to an end, I think, misses that point a bit. So, thanks. Deanna?
So thank you for making that clarification that there won't be attendance taken on the 15th and the 16th, because I think that sort of really kind of puts a little bow around the 12th, that, that we will be finishing on the 12th, the 15th and the 16th are all, to celebrate and to put a bow to the ending of the school year as well. So people can choose to use those days to celebrate and thank their teachers and their classmates and their students. So thank you for that question.
Absolutely. It's not that different than our field days and other activities that we have at the end of the school year. When you think about it, we're just putting them in the last 2 days instead of in the weeks leading up. Although if you look at the other side, there's so many activities happening as well. It's great. Carl, go ahead. Carl.
Yeah, I just need to unmute myself. So one thing I wanted to say too is that if you read that letter from the state, it was to not, because we waived the 180 days, that's not invitation to move your, don't take advantage of it and move your school year in. Because you had such, great foresight, and because of the planning that happened, our distance learning started literally, 2 days, the second day after the in class.
Yeah.
So we have met, we will meet the 180 days, including the last ones are going to be similar to, fun days at the end of that are in class at school. I mean, it's going to be similar. It's going to be virtual like everything else we've been doing. So, I think that we can feel very comfortable and actually be very proud because of the way we pulled off the distance learning, and you and the staff and the teachers in particular. We really shouldn't take any credit. That, we have met the 180 days. So moving our calendar in is not because the 180 days were waived. We have met the 180 days.
That's right.
And therefore, I really do think that we're actually sticking to both the spirit and the letter of that state guideline, unlike some other towns. So I feel very comfortable with that and very good about it. And I agree, just not to repeat everyone else, that great plan to end the year, completely threads the needle. And what I love, it's simple, it's straightforward, it's predictable. I think that parents of students should be very pleased with it. So thank you for putting that great thought into it as you do in everything.
Thank you. Katrina?
Just for the point of clarification, I assume that the schedules at the elementary and the middle schools remain the same. In other words, they have the half days as they do now. That will continue going forward. Right? Okay.
Yeah, it should. That time has been incredibly valuable for professional learning, for coordination of curriculum, work, other things like that. So yeah.
Okay, great.
There's great value added with that.
Okay, I would agree. And I would just echo what everyone else has said. I think this is a very thoughtful approach to addressing all of the concerns we've heard and the desires and wishes, and sort of taking into account everybody's challenges right now, and thinking about the high schoolers who are still trying to earn grades in many cases, together with the elementary school kids whose parents are having to be extremely involved in their learning. So thank you, and yeah, fully support it. All right. So with that, I need a motion to approve revisions to the 2019-2020 calendar as described, establishing Tuesday, June 16th as the last day of school, Friday, June 12th as the final day of distance learning, and with school closed on Friday, May 22nd, Monday, June 1st, and Monday, June 8th. Motion, Carl, second, Deanna, all in favor? Okay, it's a unanimous vote.
Great. Thank you. And to those interested or watching, we will be getting it on our website immediately, and certainly sharing it with the press as well, so they can get the word out, and I'll get something out as well to let people know the revised calendar for the end of the year. I'll get an email up by the end of the day. Great.
All right, moving on to our special Board of Ed committee. Did everyone receive a copy of that?
You should have received an email just about probably 30 seconds prior to the meeting beginning. As you know, the information continues to be fluid and to change regularly, coming from health department, coming from the governor's office, the State Department of Ed. Just as new data becomes available, they're trying to make best decisions that they can. This preparing to reopen our schools is going to be an incredibly complex endeavor that's going to require the assistance and input of, I think, people townwide. Certainly on the operational side, we've been hard at work for weeks, sort of planning and thinking and learning about things. But what this committee would be able to do would be to help to sort of coordinate on a macro level, both with the Board of Ed, the community, other town bodies, and then internally in the district, so that the work can sort of flow two ways between the operational work that's going on day to day and the policy / resource decisions that need to be made as we figure out how best to prepare, and even programmatic decisions. There are policies around the length of school days and schedules, things like that we'll have to take a look at, depending upon what kind of structure we ultimately are able to implement based on the guidelines of health and safety first, but certainly driven to find opportunities to bring our kids together to have shared learning experiences. So as we're sort of navigating this, like we mentioned it on Monday night, I think it would be very helpful to have a special committee of the Board of Ed to serve in a variety of different kind of roles and functions as we navigate these uncharted waters.
And I think if I could add, Brian, I think there's a nice opportunity for this special committee, because of the sort of wide scope of considerations that will need to be discussed during the time spent together, to be working through and together with our own standing committees, as far as resources and governance and even communications, if there's a role at some point for that to be increased. So I think the engagement level from all of us will be really important through this, in addition to our regular full board meetings where we'll be discussing this, I'm sure, every meeting from now on out.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it gives us an opportunity to make sure people stay on the same page, as we do the reporting out at each of the board meetings and things. So, because I'm sure, like everyone, we've all got so many things going on, it can be difficult to make every meeting all of the time, but we'll be sure that this committee reports out to the full board regularly, which I think will be very helpful. So the deliverables, you play with it, right? The most important deliverable is reopening school. But you see it'll be making recommendations for the full board. As any committee does, this committee doesn't vote, doesn't make decisions. It makes recommendations to the full board. And really, as you know, the committee structure exists so that folks can go deeper into a topic and then bring the information, excuse me, to the full board for consideration and, if need be, action. But committees don't take action in and of themselves. Yeah, you have the draft in front of you, but any questions or anything we can do to answer any questions around thought or scope or purpose at this point? Or would you rather review it? And then what the timeline would be is Monday night, we would look for a second read on this so that we can really launch the committee right away. And Monday night, we'll also have an update for the board that'll take a bit to share with you everything that's been going on so that we're all on the same page as this committee begins to and comes together. So we'll put a couple of slides or something together for you for that night. Yeah, Deanna.
So have you given any consideration to committee size, or I don't see that in the charter, so I just didn't know.
Lots. We started with the typical language around, at least 3 and sort of the breakdown on that. We do have a feeling that many of you are going to want to participate. So we figured that put it together. It will be at least 3 and see who's available based on the frequency of meetings that this is going to require, and then kind of manage it from there. Katrina, I don't know if you have any other.
Yeah, I think, and just thinking about in terms of how we need the inputs that we need from externally from our communities. So I think the thought is representation from each of the town boards, and certainly the health department is going to be critical as we move forward, and input from them as well. So I think those, at a minimum, I think, consideration of parent, representation as well. So I think, and we can perhaps come back on Tuesday night or Monday night with more information on that. But I think at a minimum, representation from those groups will be really important to how we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good,
I just wanted to, for composition then, do we want to add who from the town we're going to be putting on this committee? Because it sounds like this is not just a Board of Ed committee then, if you're adding non-board members.
Right. In the charge, it does specify designated representatives of town boards, the local public health department, the school administration, and members of the community. So we can certainly spell that out for Monday night.
I think we should put that in the composition so we all understand who's on the committee and who's not.
Yep. Okay.
And it will be, it's interesting because a Board of Ed committee generally is made of Board of Ed members who then invite external partners and people to come into specific meetings if need be to share expertise and what have you. So it's a little different in that it's still going to be a Board of Ed committee of 3 or however many Board of Ed members. But then you would invite in people from the various boards to become sort of ad hoc, but longer term members. So we've got it's a little different than your traditional Board of Ed committee structure, but we'll make it work. And it actually, one of the advantages of doing it this way, I believe, is that then it is the Board of Education committee members who are, meeting frequency and setting the agenda and managing those pieces. Because as we know, when we partner with other agencies, there's always a question of who's posting it, who's creating the agenda, who's setting the dates. And this really clarifies that because, again, the urgency and the need for that sort of coordination at the high level.
So then maybe the composition doesn't include anyone from outside of the board, and we just, and then it, like you said, the committee has the ability to bring people in as necessary so that it doesn't, because once you start adding specific individuals that have to be part of the committee, then you have, if those people outside of the board are not able to attend, they're part of the quorum requirements and all that other stuff that you would need to do business.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that and come up with, again, some recommendations and see what availability is out there. Good idea. Okay.
Yeah. I think we want to make sure we keep it a Board of Ed committee, and so we could invite some people in the town to be sort of like ad hoc members and just come to every meeting if we want. But if we don't have any authority to sort of appoint them. So if we go beyond I think it could end up morphing into a town committee. And I just think that, the town might have a role for that at some point, but I think that this one will help the Board of Ed.
Yeah, because there certainly may be a need for meetings for the Board of Ed to discuss things that are much more relevant to Board of Ed operations than, that you may not need the other folks in for some of the conversations. Yeah, that makes good sense. Julie?
And when we talk about members of the community, are we sort of looking for folks to tell us they might be interested in being, if we're calling them ad hoc members or whatever, or are they people that we sort of are seeking out? Do you have any sense of how we might, of whom we might invite to be representative of the community at this point?
I've had some very generous offers already from some people with various expertise, some very, very impressive. So I think that we could begin there with that conversation. We also have folks who are engaged in their schools as kind of representatives already. So they've already got maybe a more intimate knowledge of the operations of the schools through our PTCs and PFA and other ways folks have been involved. So I think that it would be sort of a conversation together to see what would be the right approach to do that.
Okay.
There also will be, because each school will have its own sort of challenges and needs as we think about whatever the approach is going to be. So I think it's likely there's going to be groups at each school that are working at that sort of with their boots on the ground. And that may be another opportunity for more parent and community involvement.
Thanks.
Makes sense.
All right. So with that, just as a first read, is there a motion to approve for first reading the charter for a special BOE committee named Reopen New Canaan Public Schools? Bob? Okay. So with that, we'll move forward with the second reading on Monday night with the revisions we discussed.
Did you have Bob move it and
Second.
Jen second?
Yes. Okay. Sorry, forgot the second. Jen.
Great. Well, I'm glad to say my clock says 9:30.
Job.
Well done.
All right. Thank you. Regular meeting Monday night. We'll get that agenda out by tomorrow, and we'll have that update, and we'll continue our conversation about our committee.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
To adjourn.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a good day.
Great.